Yeah.
I think a part of this is they also need to be taught to respect their environment. A lot of these people don't understand when they're in their vehicles because they don't understand how to get rid of the trash, how to get, you're going to make it easier, but that doesn't mean they're going to understand.
That's exactly right. And that's one of the things too, is that many communities have developed what are called good neighbor agreements, right?
Okay.
So they actually, as people sign up for the garbage removal or the septic removal, they talk with them about good neighbor agreements so that if they take care of the area around their vehicles, then they're not going to get moved along. Right. And they're not going to get swept or abated, as it's called in different communities, right? And so that's one of the things too that we try to work to. We at the National Vehicle Residency Collective, one of our core missions is a leave no trace ethic. We're very big on people taking care of the area around them because many nomads are environmental stewards. We take care of the area around us because we don't want to blow it up. We don't want to blow up the spot for us and for others.
That's right.
Because then we can't go back there, and then others have to be kicked out too. Right. And that's one of the things we try to show to the policymakers is that we actually really care about the places where we park.
Yes.
We don't want to lose them. It's often, though, that we don't have a dumpster or a toilet, and that's why people have to do what they do where they do it. And so we try to bring in those amenities to make sure people can take care of their place around them, but also be able to, again, create spaces off streets where people can be longer term, have everything safe, and be able to maintain their vehicle. You can't do any vehicle maintenance in the street. That's one of the big challenges.
Oh, well, but again, then you have to deal with oil. There's a lot of things you have to deal with that harm the environment where they're at, even the streets.
That's right. Well, that's what I'm saying too. Is that we don't want someone doing an oil change in the street. Right. We don't want someone dropping the transmission and trying to chase it out in the street. Right. But if we have a parking lot where that person can be on, where they can do that, we can actually have the proper way to dispose of that and be able to take care of all those things. And the person can do that sort of work on their home so that it is safe and healthy for them.
Yes. And the environment.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. And their community.
Yes. This is all about, to me, what's most important is I have fit into my community as a van dweller, and my community has accepted me. And because I do clean up all around, I mean, I think everybody can build something like that and be safe and still fit into a normal sticks and bricks community.
Absolutely.
If they're willing to try.
That's right. And I've interviewed over 500 people or so, living in vehicles in urban spaces all across the West Coast. And so many say, that many in the cities are there because they're displaced into their vehicles.
Yes.
They're from that local community.
Yes.
They worked in that. They still do work in the local community. There's security guards there, or they're teachers, or
there's something there living there.
A lot of them are veterans, and they're living in that community because that's where they get their medical care. It's where their kids are. It's where their work is. But they still can't afford to live with the rising rents. As we know, the rent's too damn high, right? And that's the way it is everywhere. And we're seeing more and more people. It gets back to your question about this: is this a fad? I don't think so at all. I think we're seeing more and more people who are moving into their vehicles simply because they can't afford to live in their communities, and they don't want to leave their communities. They shouldn't have to, right? They want to stay where their familiar networks are.
Well, they can save gas if they're working there,
and that too. That's right. Well, and I've also met people who can't afford to live in a city, and they live in an RV during the week while they work gig jobs, right? Where they drive a car and then during the weekend go back to their families who live way out in a rural area where it's a lot cheaper to live. So, I think that there's a lot of reasons why people live in vehicles, but all of those reasons seem to be getting more and more. And I think that, we're going to
the reasons are increasing.
They are. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
The
new reasons all the time.
Determinants, we might say.
Well, we're looking at fires, disasters.
Oh my goodness.
North Carolina, the floods.
Absolutely.
Florida, the hurricane.
That's right.
Now we have California, the fires. All of these people are displaced, and there's no housing for them.
That's exactly right. And in L.A. is a great example. The L.A. fires currently have displaced at least 90,000 people. There were already 20,000 people living in vehicles in L.A. before that happened. No one's talking about what happened to them. Everyone's talking about what happened to the people in the houses.
That's
and it's a tragedy what's happened to the people in the houses. But so many of those people, if they're lucky, will be able to have a trailer or an RV to move into while they're repairing their houses. But I should say, if they're lucky.
North Carolina, they're still in the winter.
That's right.
Living in their vehicles with no kind of housing.
Right. That's right. And unfortunately, what often happens is that the cities where these things happen, where these disasters happen, I sometimes don't want to call them natural disasters, because I think a lot of times they're man-made disasters.
Yeah, we don't know about this.
Right. But the where these disasters are occurring, people are displaced into their vehicles. For the first month or so, everyone's Santa Cruz strong, L.A. strong, and everyone's together for our displaced neighbors. And then a month or two goes by, and we got to get rid of the homeless riffraff. And then you see the sweeps come in, then you see the tickets come in, and then you see people displaced from their communities because they have no other option but to live where they used to live. And it takes forever to get that insurance claim settled, to clean up the property. A lot of times you can't even park on your own property until $1 million is spent scraping off the soil to get rid of all the paints and everything that melted into it when the fire happened. So one of the things we definitely think we're going to see a lot more people living in vehicles because of this L.A. fires. We're already seeing it, but we're going to see that increase. And we saw that happen in Santa Cruz. We saw it happen in the Paradise fires, in Butte County in Chico, we're seeing it and in during hurricanes in Florida.
And it's always the next news story.
That's right.
And the people left behind go, oh, they forgot about us. No, it's always the most current news.
Yeah, it's the if it bleeds, it leads thing, right?
That's right.
And whatever is the next big news cycle,
that's what tends
to take over. That's right. And then the people who are there become forgotten.
Yes.
And the whole sort of compassion and the unified.
It only lasts so long, and then they go to the next one.
That's right. It's compassion fatigue in a sense.
Yes.
They call that,
yes.
Right. And then then we see the tickets come in, and then we see in Santa Cruz where they had these big fires. I was there when they had their fires.
Yeah.
Saw the streets were full of people living in RVs and campers. Again, who were lucky enough to have that. A lot of the renters up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, they never got insurance. They never got anything paid out, and they just lost
What year
everything.
was that?
That was in 2020, I think.
No, well, 1991, I was there at the Oakland fires, and my secretary died in that. One of the secretaries on my floor. I knew her very personally. Her and her mother died in that, and she was married to a firefighter who was fighting that fire.
Yeah.
But there were people displaced then in 1991.
That's right. And this is nothing. This is new.
This is not new.
Over and over again. And so in that 2020 fire, we saw people displaced right into the streets, into their vehicles,
and they can't get back.
For the first month or so, everyone's Santa Cruz strong. We're all here to protect. And a month goes by. We got to get rid of the homeless riffraff. And a year after that, they put in their oversized vehicle ordinance, right? And they started, and which now they have an oversized vehicle. Well, they started putting together an oversized vehicle ordinance that went into effect this last year, and that oversized vehicle ordinance says that if you are living in a vehicle that I think it's over 7 feet tall or 15 feet long, maybe it's 10 feet long, that you cannot park in the entire city of Santa Cruz overnight unless you can get a 72-hour permit, but you can only get 3 of them, and you can only get it if you own property in the town. So for all of us who are just passing through or don't own a piece of property there, you won't be able to get that permit. And so effectively, I think that those things are really, really linked, right? You can see how these laws that are punitive, that push us out, that banish us from communities, often are directly linked to those disasters that displace us.
Because you just lost a lifetime of value, and it might take another lifetime to get it back, which means you may be in that vehicle for 10 years before you build enough to do something.
That's right. And it's often very difficult to save up and build when you are moving around on the road.
That's right.
And particularly when you keep on getting pushed from area to area, and those tickets come in, and now you got to pay the tickets, and you got to keep your registration and all that stuff. And a lot of the people that I've met in 15 years interviewing people about this have exactly those stories. I remember meeting people in Paradise right after the fires up there. Actually, it was
a lot of seniors were up there.
Oh, yeah. About 3 or 4 years later, I was talking to people who were living in their cars, and they were saying how some of them had been on the affordable housing wait lists before the fires, but when the fires happened, all the people with insurance got all the affordable housing.
Yeah.
Right? And so now there was no more affordable housing for them. So they continued to live in their car because there just simply wasn't another housing option.
I got an 8-year waiting list from the state for the affordable housing. I think that's what it was.
That's
I
right,
applied for everything, and there were 8 years. What am I supposed to do in 8 years?
That's right. That's right. And it's 8 years of living in your van, right?
That's right.
And yeah, exactly. And that is really, really common.
And
that's almost everybody.
I can be displaced at it. When I was number 8, and I thought, oh, just a couple of years. They displaced me, and they said, no, we changed the whole because all these people needed it prior to me. I'm like, wait a minute, I've been on it for 3 years.
Yeah.
And now you've added another 5 years.
That's right. There's actually, they use these things.
They displace you.
They use these things called vulnerability indexes.
Yes.
VI-SPDAT is a big one they use, and they're a bit controversial, partially because what is the vulnerability can change, and depending upon who's sort of using that survey, and it can reassign people on that. And what it does is, it's normally like the VI-SPDAT. I think it's like out of 1 out of 15, and it basically means that if you don't have a 14 or a 15, the highest ranking on there, you're not actually getting into housing.
You will never get into housing because you'll always be displaced.
That's right. You're always going to be pushed down.
There's always going to be someone worse off than you.
And a lot of the housing social workers end up figuring that out, and they say, well, if they want their client to get into housing, make sure you answer yes on these questions to push them up to 14 or 15, which then makes that whole system kind of not really useful.
No.
And so this is
so what's the point in having a list?
That's right. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, it's been very nice talking to you. We could go on and on.
We could go on and on. Yeah.
And I know society all the listeners could go on and on.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for a very informative interview.
Thank you.
And maybe this will help someone gravitate them towards your organization to try and help you. Maybe they have skills or something they can offer and help your organization move this along a little bit faster. It probably won't happen a lot in my lifetime.
You never know.
You never know.
We're growing more and more, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and to speak with your viewers. If anyone does want to learn more, our website is vehicleresidency.org. We do monthly meetings that are an hour and a half long. Everything we do is virtual, so it's all online. And if you don't want to do the internet Zoom stuff, you can call on in. We send out, if you join our mailing list, we send out an invitation to those meetings, and we send out a recording of the meeting afterwards. So if you don't want to attend or you can't attend, you can always watch later on. We also do a conference every other year, which is a 2-day long, 8 hours each day conference. We record all the videos of those sessions. They're about an hour each, and put them all up on YouTube. And it's stuff like how to keep your insurance when you're on the road, how to maintain your medical care when you're on the road, how to vote when you're on the road, like all these things that are so important to us, but often aren't discussed, right? Because we're often talking about sort of the
Well, do you have a link? Do you have a link?
Yeah.
That I could put in the video?
Yes, absolutely. I can give you that. Or just, if you go to our vehicleresidency.org, we have a link right to our YouTube channel there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll put a link in there too.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Graham.
It's a pleasure.